Well, hello everyone. Welcome to our Ipswich Prep School live webinar. Welcome to everyone. I have with me Amanda Charles, our head of prep, and waiting in the wings, some other teachers, senior teachers to talk to you. So without further ado, I'm going to hand over to Amanda to tell us all about Ipswich Prep.
Thank you, Saskia. As Saskia said, I'm Amanda Childs. I'm head of Ipswich Prep School. And Ipswich Prep School has children from the ages of 3 to 11. But also have our own childcare facilities. We take children from 3 months to 3 years before that as a full-time, all year round childcare facility. So we have children that are very young to 11. Ipswich Prep is a very happy school, and we want learning to be fun. And it is fun here. We want the children to develop a love of learning that's going to last them a lifetime. So it's not just about the early years, but creating the foundations of that love of learning that will stay with them forever. We love being independent, and we embrace the independence that we have, which, for example, means that we can ensure that we take the best bits of all of the educational opportunities that are out there. The educational research that's going on, we look at that, we take the best bits of it, and we don't have to work within the constraints of SATs and all of the other regulatory assessments that the state schools have to work to. So that means that we really do create a curriculum that is broad and balanced, and one that the children are going to learn creatively as well as with those academic subjects. We've got excellent teachers at Ipswich Prep School, and they truly love learning themselves as well and are passionate about education. So that, coupled with the small class sizes, means that we can ignite a passion of learning for the children with a mix of both specialist and form teaching. So that the specialist teaching starts all the way back in nursery with some of the subjects such as PE and music being taught by specialist teachers. But the form teachers have that special bond with the children as they go through the school. But that is a really good match between the two parts of having a form teacher who teaches you quite a lot and really gets to know you, but also having that specialist teaching, which will mean that those teachers have a real specialism and passion for their subjects, and that comes out in all of those specialist subjects. So, for example, in art, where children often say, "Oh, I can't do that." Well, actually, they can. And they can because they're taught properly, and that excellent teaching helps that to happen. As we go through the school, we become more academic, and as children enter the school further towards year 6, we become more academically selective. But that academic nature of the school is not done through pushing the children. Instead, it's through challenge and stretch, and that's an important nuance between the two. We have a reputation for perhaps being a little bit sort of academic hothouse-ish. We're really not that at all. It's about getting to the crux of what the children are all about, and helping them to learn. And one of the things that we've developed are our own learning dispositions, the things that we think make a good learner, and that was developed with the children. So they were very much part of deciding what the most important bits about learning and being a great learner are for Ipswich Prep School, and those learning dispositions are in everything that we do. We want the children to reach their potential. And if they are stretching themselves and challenging themselves and knowing what it's like to be a great learner, then they're going to be more successful. And that potential, obviously, at 11 is not going to be reached. So it's all about preparing the children for the next part of their education as well. And we say at Ipswich School that the best preparation for the next part of Ipswich School is the one that comes before. We really care about the children, and we care about each other in our school as well. And that's one of the things that makes it such a happy place. But we care about the children's education in its broadest sense. So it's not just about the academic side of things. It's foundations to move on to that next stage, as I was just saying. But we want the children to be relentlessly curious, inquisitive learners, wanting to find out more all the time. So we encourage questions at Ipswich Prep. We want the children to ask as many questions as they've got in order to be able to move forward in their learning. But we care about the whole child. ensuring that they develop life skills as well. And those life skills start right from the very beginning, and it's working in partnership with parents. So the triangle that we talk about, the parents, the children and us working together to make the best possible opportunities for the children to be well-rounded and leave us, when they leave us at the end of the senior school, as a well-rounded and a person that's confident but not arrogant, and that's really important. Those small things that will help them in their lives later on that matter, and things like good manners, making sure that we are kind to each other, knowing what happens if we interact with somebody. All of those interactions are actually going to have an impact on the other people that we are around. So it's important that the children know all about the emotional development as well as the academic development. And that is because we have exceptional pastoral care. And I say exceptional, not lightly, but actually because we really do. We spend a lot of time making sure that the children are as happy as possible. The research shows us that if children are happy, then they are going to learn better. So if you are putting all of the excellent things that we have in place, the excellent teaching, the excellent curriculum, if the children are not happy, then that's not going to work. So it's really important that we help the children to be as settled as possible. And there are going to be ups and downs and bumps on the way. But if we can help the children with the small things, then hopefully they're not going to turn into big things. We can't make everything better. And there are things in children's lives that perhaps we wouldn't want, but we can help them to cope with those, and helping the children to have a healthy mental health as well as physical health by giving them lots of opportunities to be out there, outside. We want the children to be outside as much as possible. Then we can help the child to develop through that pastoral care, and the system is there to support them. So we're all about creating opportunities in an environment where we expect the children to succeed, and we put everything in place to help them to get that success at every step of the way. And children are going to be more encouraged to do more and more and to try and be brave in their learning if they are having successes. So we make sure that they have opportunities to have those successes along the way. As I said, we have excellent teachers, we have an excellent, happy environment and superb facilities. So all of these things with an excellent curriculum and an atmosphere conducive to learning is going to help the children to succeed. And we have evidence that our children leave us confident learners going on to the next stage of their education. We love our school. We really do love our school, and we hope that you're going to too.
Thank you very much. And Amanda, would you like to introduce the other teachers that we have with us today?
I certainly will. So I have pleasure in introducing Lucy Southgate. So Lucy is one of my senior leaders, and she's responsible for the curriculum overall and assessment. So Lucy is joining us today, and also Annabelle Ryan, who is, her title is actually Head of Lower Prep. And just to explain Lower Prep to you, so Lower Prep starts at nursery and goes through to year 2. So she is especially responsible for the youngest of our children in the prep school.
Thank you very much. We've got questions flooding through, so this is great. Thank you. I'm going to bring our admissions manager on shortly, but firstly, I've got a question for you, Amanda. This is about key workers. So it says, my husband and I are both key workers. If we have to go into lockdown again, do you make provision for key worker children? Would they still be able to attend school? And I've got some more questions coming through on that, but I'll just put that one to you first.
So when we locked down straight away, we never actually closed in the prep school last term. We provided 4 key workers and the children all the way through. So that provision was there right from day one. So there was never a time where key workers couldn't actually go and get on with the wonderful things that they needed to do. We made sure that provision was here. The whole of last term, the children had a continuity of education through a variety of means. So live lessons and videos. And that meant that the key worker children were supervised within school in order to be able to access that as well. And as I say, that went all the way through last term.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. Can you tell me about school buses? So we have a parent here who says, my daughter would be in year 4. Would she be allowed to go on a school bus? And are there supervisors making sure that the children are safe and looked after?
So the school buses, yes, in year 4, absolutely could go on the school bus. We prefer the children I suppose years 3 and 4 to have a sibling if possible. The supervision on the bus, there's not adult supervision on the bus, but there are prefects that are on each bus that help to supervise the children. There are very specific rules for the children that are on buses, and we work hard to make sure that the children adhere to those rules. And we very, very rarely have a problem. The bus companies that we use are all through a central point, and as I say, we very rarely have a problem with the buses. So certainly, a year 4 child can come on the bus.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. Can we stay on year 4 for a moment? And I don't know if we want to bring Lucy in here as well. So my child is looking to join year 4. Is it rare for Ipswich School to have vacancies for non-entry points? So I wonder, Amanda, if you could talk to us about vacancies, and then we might just ping to Lucy to tell us a little bit more about life in general, about year 4 and how people settle in.
So entry points, it really does depend from year to year how many places that we've got available. And as we go up the school, it becomes more and more difficult to get a place, although we try to be as flexible as we possibly can by adding extra classes if we can. So, for example, last year we had 3 year 6 classes because there was the need to do that. So obviously there is a point where we have to make that decision, and it takes a bit of time to recruit teachers, etc. So it is important that we know as early as possible. But certainly for year 4, we have places at the moment. We will have places for next year. At the moment, it's a little bit more of a squeeze in years 5 and 6. But as I said, that we are flexible with that, and that we can create a little bit of extra room if we need to.
Excellent. Lucy, can you talk to us a bit more of, say, year 4 pupil joins in? How do they settle?
Absolutely. So usually the first point of call is when a parent may come in, have a tour, talk with Amanda, and decide that they would like their child to come and sit for some entrance assessments. I usually conduct those assessments, and all of the children who come along have a really great time doing those assessments. It's not always to assess what they can do, but more to see what their potential for learning is, and to see how teachable they are. It also gives us a lot of information to be able to feed back to parents about if any child has any gaps in their learning. So if they were to join us, we know where we can really start from with that child. If a child comes in for what we call a taster day, as I said, they spend some of their time with me doing those assessments, doing a bit of reading, writing, some maths work and some reasoning. And then they get the opportunity to also spend some time in their classroom to get a bit of a flavour of what it's like to be here at the prep. And every child who's left us on a taster day does go home with a beaming smile, having had a wonderful day. So I'd really encourage you to allow your children to come in and spend some time with us so they can actually get that buzzy feeling and feel as, very happy to be here.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. Annabelle, I'm going to ask the same question to you about joining lower prep. So it must be quite scary, quite exciting. How do you settle the children when they join in nursery or reception?
So I think it's scary for the parents, but actually the children, they take it all in their stride. And I think that it's a really big deal. Starting school is a really big deal. But as far as the children are concerned, they're mostly just really excited. And it's our job to make sure that they have a really lovely time. It's a big deal leaving mummy or daddy. But actually, it's certainly not that mum and dad are booted out of the door the moment they get here. They can settle their child. We make sure that the child is really comfortable. As far as assessment is concerned, it's very low key. It is about just making sure that the child is happy in the environment. And as Lucy said, that the children are teachable, that we know that we are the right place for them, and that they know that we're the right place for them as well. So it's very much about letting them do the things that they want to do. I usually try and find out from the parents some of the toys that they like to play with, some of their favourite things to do, so that we can have those all out ready. We also make sure that the other children are prepared for having some new friends coming in. They take that job very seriously, welcoming new friends into the classroom, and making sure that they're just busy and entertained. And then when they're settled and when they're ready, we will start doing a little bit of assessment with them. But equally, we have had occasions where the most important thing was that the child was just comfortable and settled, and then we invited them back on another day so that we could spend a little bit more time with them. So it really is trying to remove the pressure and the scariness, because, as I say, it really isn't scary. It's really exciting.
Oh, that's really interesting. So you're also saying if it doesn't go so well on day one, no problem.
Absolutely. We're talking about teeny tiny little people here, and we want to make sure that it is the very beginning of their learning journey. We need to get it right from the word go. And if they struggle on that first visit, we will make sure that they come back. And if they struggle on their second visit, they will come back, and we will only be looking at them when they're really happy. We want them to come back. We want them to join us with that big happy smile, which is what they do. And as I say, the parents usually worry, but the children, once they're here, it's like, bye, mummy. And
Excellent. I'm going to go back to Lucy in a moment, but I just want to ask you, Annabelle, so you see the kids through all the way up until year 2.
Yeah.
I was talking to some year 2s last week. I hadn't appreciated how much they saw themselves as role models for being at the top of.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me more about that.
So they are year two are top of the lower prep. Huge responsibility. I think the biggest thing that we try and do is make sure, everything that we're doing with the children is preparing them for their future, and they really rise to those challenges. And I think sometimes people think that because we work with very young children that that they don't really know their own minds, that they don't know what they want to do, what they want to be. But actually, they are independent, raw human beings who know what they want to do. They want to strive and be role models. They want to do the best that they can do. They don't have inhibitions, so they want to give most things a go. And they do. They see it really real responsibility. Even the nursery children, when they have new friends come and join them during the year, all of a sudden they're the big children that know what they're doing, and so they help and support the little ones, and it goes up as they go through the school. But yeah, they're very proud to be top of the lower prep in year 2.
Thank you very much. And Lucy, I suppose the same is true of year 6.
Absolutely. Just going back to what Annabelle said about children coming in for assessments, the same applies for children here in upper prep, that actually if we have a child who comes in and doesn't feel particularly settled, which happens very, very rarely, but if that is the case, or if we don't feel we've quite got enough information about how they learn, we can invite them back for a second day where they can spend some more time in the classroom, getting to know us, we get to know them. And just like Annabelle said, with our upper prep children, we do seek to find out as much as possible about that child before they come in for their day. So we can really strike up those conversations, whether it be about football or whether it's about dogs or whether they love sailing or drawing. And we can find something that really clicks with them to start those conversations. Going on to the responsibility point, we have a buddy system. So when children join us for a taster day, they are buddied up with a child who has similar interests to them. So that will help them on that first day when the new pupil's visiting us for a taster day, doesn't know anybody, and they immediately have got somebody who's got a shared interest with them. And that person, if they do join our school, will hopefully be their buddy then for the first few weeks of term to make sure that they know exactly where they're going to their lessons, what to do, what to take with them, so that they're really comfortable and settled straight away. Throughout upper prep, the children love that sense of responsibility, and it's something that we really encourage. Well, as Annabelle said, from nursery, we have the buddy system where it is a huge responsibility, and the children take great pride in having that responsibility and showing off their school because they love it here so much. In every class, we have form captains, we have a school council rep, we have eco warriors, and then as the children progress through the school, they in year 6 can take on monitor roles where they have to write a letter of application to become an art monitor or a games monitor or a library monitor. There are numerous different monitor roles which they take very seriously, and it is a very important job because it helps to run our school and make it the very best school that we can be. So it is a very important thing for the children to have that sense of responsibility. We also have a house system here in the prep. We have 4 houses from reception all the way up to year 6, and the year 6 children can apply to be a house captain. Now that is a really big thing for the year 6s, and lots of children apply for it. And it's also an important life skill to learn to be disappointed sometimes, that actually you've put your heart and soul into a presentation, you've really impressed everybody, but there's only that one spot for a house captain, and then we have a vice captain as well. But we do change the house captains regularly. So if the children don't get to have that position straight away, then there is that opportunity in future terms to do that. And there are lots of house competitions that go on. They get to lead their house, deliver messages, and be very much part of organising the house from reception all the way through to year 6.
That's lovely, thank you. Can I ask you, Amanda, and I'll come back to you as well, Annabelle, on that. When I was talking to the children last week as well, I really did notice that they'd learnt how to fail. They were laughing about failing in science experiments. So Amanda, there's a real sense that resilience comes through seamlessly.
Yeah, and resilience is one of our learning dispositions. So some children find that hard. They find actually taking on that disappointment really difficult. But it is a life skill. And as I said in my introduction, that having those life skill opportunities is really important. So those disappointments that the children feel when they're younger, if they can then bounce back from those, then it's going to help them when perhaps there are bigger disappointments at a later stage, whether that be in job opportunities or whether it be in relationships. So we have to build those emotional skills, and giving them opportunities to fail is really important, and helping them to understand that failure is not a bad thing. It's what you do with that failure. So in science, for example, that we set up lots of things where the children perhaps do get it wrong, and it doesn't matter, and helping them to understand that scientists often get things wrong, and sometimes the biggest discoveries are actually in things that went wrong rather than the things that went right. So it's helping the children to just feel that it's okay to get things wrong sometimes. It doesn't matter. You don't have to be perfect. In fact, there are far more things that are unhealthy about being perfect all the time than actually having that sense of confidence in oneself to be able to either get things right and celebrate, and not worry about celebrating and your own success as well, and being proud of what you do. So for example, in assembly on Monday, I was actually talking about emotional well-being, and talking about thinking to yourself at the end of the day 5 things that you're proud of during the day, and how that then helps you feel before you go to sleep.
That's great. Yeah, I certainly see that coming through when I speak to the children. I've got a question here, really good question. How multicultural is the school, both in terms of pupils attending and in terms of its outlook and its learning?
So in terms of children attending, we're actually a really multicultural school, and looking at the demographic of Ipswich and the wider area, one would think actually we would be less multicultural than we are. So we have a really good mix, and the children, we have that in everything that we do. So understanding children's individualities and differences is in everything that we do. So it doesn't matter about your multicultural background as far as being an individual. It's what is part of you being an individual. So there are lots of other things that make you individual. We celebrate those differences, and we want to find out about other cultures as well. So the children that are from different cultures and backgrounds will often be part of either class discussions or assemblies, and that is brought into all sorts of things. So, for example, that I have Iranian in my family, and we celebrate Nowruz, and we bring that into assembly that a lot of other children wouldn't know about, for example. So, it's one of the things that I celebrate in my family and want to share that with others, and we do that in everything that we do.
That's excellent. I'm going to bring Lucy in as well, because we learn a lot of languages in the prep school, and that must help with cultural diversity and an approach to learning.
Yes, absolutely. We have a really broad languages curriculum here in the prep to foster a real love for learning a language. Our children in reception start to learn French, and they have a lesson once a week by a subject specialist teacher, which they love, with a puppet. It's crazy. The children absolutely love their language lessons there. So the children spend 3 years learning French and learning how to speak French, learning about the French culture, learning about countries around the world where they speak French. And then as our children move into the upper prep, we have a slightly different languages program where the children are immersed deeply into different languages each year. So in year 3, the children learn German. And again, they learn how to speak German. They learn how to write some German. They learn about German foods, where German is spoken around the world. Then in year 4, they go on to Russian. Year 5, Spanish. And then in year 6, they revisit French again. So our children leave the prep loving languages, having a bit of a flavour of some of the different languages that they might want to pursue when they go into the senior school, because our children have a choice of languages when they go across the road into year 7, and so they have that understanding of what those languages might be.
That's lovely. Thank you very much. I'm going to bring Kate Frankland in. Hi, Kate.
Hi, morning.
So Kate is our prep admissions manager, and so she's the person you will meet if you come and see the school. Kate, can you talk to us about what parents should do if they want to see the school?
Yes, so the first thing to do would be to give me a call or drop me an email, and I can arrange a personal tour for you, an opportunity for you to come in and look around the prep. You'll also meet with Mrs. Childs and chat with her about your expectations from the prep for your children, and I can tell you all about what makes us so special. And also give you a really good understanding of the admissions process and the timing to do certain things. So get applications in and when we're going to be running assessments for next year entry as well.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. I've actually got a question now. This might be one for you, Amanda, or you might want to pass it on. It's about lunch. And I know lunch is also great, but you also have views on lunch being a developmental stage as well.
So I'll take that, because lunch is incredibly important to most children. That there are a few that maybe are not so keen on eating, but the whole experience of lunch is really, really important. So we made the decision a few years ago that we would make it compulsory for children to have a school lunch unless there was a medical reason why it shouldn't happen until the end of year 3. And we have our own kitchen for those youngest children that cater for the taste needs of the children as well. So understanding that children develop their tastes as they get a little bit older. And I'll hand you back over to Annabelle in a second with regards to that. But it's encouraging the children to not only develop their palate, but actually to develop their social skills. And we've found even with children, so from year 4 onwards, they can bring a packed lunch, but it does actually create a little bit of a divide, even though the children eat together. It's really interesting to see how that is slightly different, and not having that communal lunch, the fact that you're eating the same things can actually make a little bit of a difference. So we really do encourage the children to have a school lunch, and the school lunches are amazing. There's an excellent choice. Slightly less choice at the moment because we're having to keep our bubbles separate. So we're wanting to keep the children as safe as possible. So usually from year 4, the children would go over to the senior school to have their lunch as part of the beginning of that transition from being in the prep school to moving over to year 7. So there are several opportunities for the children to be in the senior school site or on the senior school site, and food is one of them, the dining halls. Unfortunately, at the moment, just because we're trying to keep the children as safe as possible, we've reorganised our dining so that our years 4, 5 and 6 are actually eating in the prep school as well. But we're hoping that in the not too distant future that we're going to have to go back to going to be able to go back to that. But I'll hand you back to Annabelle to talk a little bit more specifically about the early years and Key Stage 1, because it is often a worry for parents about food, and we completely understand that. So I'll hand you back to Annabelle.
Thank you. Yes, so I mean, eating is quite possibly the most important part of the children's day. They can't usually remember anything that they've done in class, but they can usually remember what they've had for pudding, or they tell their grown-ups that they've only had pasta. Now, I can assure you that the children don't only ever have pasta. However, pasta is one of those things that the children do eat. So we do make sure that we have things that the children eat every single day. There will also be lots of other things, but if 2 tubes of pasta on their tray helps them eat a little bit of meat pie, then they can have those tubes of pasta. Because the biggest thing for us is to get the children to actually eat a meal and to try some new things. Rest assured, they're usually much better for us than they are at home. They are much more adventurous with trying new foods. We try and deconstruct the food as much as possible as well. So we will have deconstructed pies. So we'll have the chicken and the sauce and the pastry lid separate. You get to know a lot of the personality of the children about where they want to have things on their tray. But again, that's absolutely fine, because the most important thing is that they are actually eating. And if they want to have their sweet corn in their cup holder, that's absolutely fine. They will eat it. And then eventually they will start having it in a little bit more of a conventional way. We encourage them to use their knives and forks, but we're equally there to help them cut up as well. So there won't ever be a child that is left floundering with a roast potato. We will be helping them. The children also have lower prep staff supervising them. So in nursery and reception, we have early years staff helping them. So staff that are really familiar to them. Also, we're all very familiar with any dietary requirements, any allergies or anything like that. So there's always plenty of adults around looking after the children. As Amanda said, it's a very sociable time. The dining hall can get a little bit noisy, but it's usually happy chatter. So they're having a nice time whilst learning their manners and whilst sitting with different people as well, not always sitting with their own class, and they're, sitting with people from different classes as well, which is great. Not at the moment, as Amanda says, we're being really safe at the moment with keeping bubbles separate. But it's a social happy time.
Excellent. Thank you very much. I've got a very specific question here for you, Lucy. This is, how much homework do the children in upper prep get?
Okay, our children here in upper prep have a very busy day. They have a very full day with the curriculum itself, and lots of our children do go on to have after school clubs as well, either here at school with our extensive co-curricular programme, or indeed with other outside clubs that they may well do. So we are aware that the children have a busy life. Weekends are busy as well, and it's also important to get that family time. So we try to create a balance with our homework. It's also important that our children learn how to work at home. They learn that independence, which is one of our learning dispositions. They learn how to tackle a problem if they're not quite sure without that teacher support. Although we are aware that some children do find homework a bit of a challenge, and having parental support at home is absolutely fine. And we have that communication with the teachers, so we know how much help they've had with it if needed. The homework from year 3 gradually increases up until year 6, so that the children are ready for that next transition into the senior school, where in year 7 they will get increasingly more homework as they get older and more independent study. But as I said, it is important for our children to learn to become independent with their learning. Some children take their homework to new lengths and suddenly decide that they want to go and do some independent study on a particular topic, and they come back with a huge presentation to show the class, which was their own self-directed learning, which is amazing because we found something that can really ignite them. But generally speaking, from year 3 upwards, children will have a piece of maths homework, English homework, and then we will have humanities and science homework depending on when it is needed. We obviously encourage the children with their reading to try and make sure that they're reading every day, practicing their tables, learning spellings, But we have that dialogue with parents to make sure that the homework load is manageable for them as well. We do have children who are busy every single night because they are, I can think of a child we had who was a tennis superstar. So every evening after school, he went to play tennis, but it meant by the time he then got home to have some supper, it was bedtime. And so there was very limited time there for his own independent study. So we found other opportunities within the school day where he could catch up, and maybe just had a slightly less expectation with him with his academic homework because he was excelling in another area. So it's important to get that balance for all families and to know each family's situation really well.
Thank you very much.
So just a time frame on that, sorry. So the year threes will have somewhere between about 20 minutes and half an hour in an evening. And then if we go up to about 40 to 45 minutes for year six, and we actually try to increase the homework by the end of year six rather than decreasing it, because as Lucy said, we're trying to get them ready for the senior school and we don't want it to be too much of a jump. But there is a difference. They are prep age children, and it's important to, as Lucy said, family time is important too.
Great. Amanda, can I keep you here? Can I ask you about remote learning? Because I know that the prep was open for key workers and we went back early in the summer, but remote learning was also quite successful, I'm hearing.
Well, we believe it was, and we've certainly heard a lot of positivity about from our parents and indeed from lots of people that joined us at the end of last term, because our remote learning was trying and succeeded in being just about as good as it was if the children were here live. It was very different. But we wanted to make sure that the children had as much contact as possible with their teachers, especially from year three upwards. And so we changed the timetable so that it was manageable within the limitations of children being at home. Learning online is really intense, and it was important to get that balance between the academic development of the children, but also their emotional well-being. So the children had a lot of their lessons from year three upwards that were live introduced. So the teachers were actually teaching the children. It wasn't about them going and finding out the information. We used the Google Suite platform in order to get the information across to the children. And in the younger years, we tended to have recorded videos so that the parents, because we also knew that with very young children, it's very difficult to get them to be sat down at the beginning of a lesson right on time. So we recorded those lessons with all of the work that was available on our own Google sites. So there was a lot of interaction between the children and staff and the parents and teachers as well, importantly. So we were making sure that, because we couldn't see what the children were doing and how they were actually completing their work, it was really important that we got that feedback from the parents as well. So that communication, which is one of our core values, was very much at the heart of what we were doing. So by the end of last term, we did have 2 weeks where we had 90 to 95% of the children all back in school. I was determined to get as many back safely, obviously. But we could do that, and the staff worked extremely hard to help that be a reality. And that, again, was to do with the emotional well-being of the children. But we felt that by the end of last term, that the vast majority of children had attained at least what they would have done if they were in school, and some of them actually exceeded those expectations. So we were really pleased, and that has been borne out with the assessments that we've done this term. So we've just completed our usual run of assessments at the beginning of the year, and the children have certainly not gone backwards, which is exactly what we wanted.
Oh, that's excellent. I've got another question here. You're a school in the heart of Ipswich. How do you introduce any outdoor learning?
Gosh, we have lots and lots and lots of outdoor learning. It's absolutely at the heart of what we do. We have, in fact, we've now got 2 outdoor areas. We've got an outdoor classroom and another open air outdoor classroom that we can use directly on the site of the prep. Yes, we are urban, and we don't shy away from the fact that we are an urban school. But the joy of being an urban school means that because we're passionate about learning outdoors, that we actually make that a reality. So I think sometimes schools that have got beautiful grounds around them sometimes forget that they are actually part of the learning environment for the children. And we want the children to understand that the world is their classroom. So it's not just about the four walls that they're in, but actually they are learning in absolutely everything that they do. And that means that whenever they're walking up the road, that they're going to learn something. It might be specifically to do with road safety, or it might be that they see something. So, for example, last year, I remember a group of children that were walking across the road to the senior school, and there happened to be a flower that had just come into bloom, and the teacher stopped and talked about it. And that's, you know, a really good example of how we are learning in everything we do. But we also have residential trips where we specifically get the children outside. We have children in year 3 who are lighting fires. We've got an outdoor wild cookery club that's going on at the moment. So even with COVID restrictions, we're making sure that we've got as much of our co-curricular that's happening as possible. And we want the children to be outside and enjoying being outside, and the wildness of some of the weather, for example. We don't put them inside when there's a bit of rain outside. We make sure that they've got the right clothing on. There's no such thing as bad weather, just bad clothes. So we want the children to be outside as much as possible.
Excellent. And how do you manage that, Annabelle, with the younger years?
Well, we're really lucky in the lower prep because all of our classrooms open out onto the outdoor area. We've got a fully grassed area. It's artificial grass, which is perfect because we can go out there no matter what the weather. I would obviously love to have real grass, but I am aware that the reality of 93 to 7-year-olds running around on it would be mud. And mud's great, don't get me wrong, mud is great. It has its place, but we've got the artificial grass that they can be on all the time. And we've also got a sheltered area outside the classroom, lots of resources. So that's very much like an extension of the classroom. They can be out there in all weathers. As Amanda says, we make sure that we are dressed appropriately. So we have waterproof trousers that we can all put in. The children all bring their wellies into school. The teachers have wellies and waterproof clothing and very large umbrellas as well, so we can get out there too. So we absolutely don't shy away from being outside. We also have our Westwood, so the boarding vision that has got a lovely woodland area. So reception children traipse over there it's a rainforest in the summer, and they explore to see if they can hear the sleeping leopards and the squawking parrots in the trees. They create a little camp area where they sit and make bonfires and toast pretend marshmallows on the fire and really use their imagination. Because it's part of the school, it's really safe and really secure. Our caretakers check it for us before we go, make sure that the slope down is safe, and just give it a quick check for us. We also use Christchurch Park. So I think the best thing with us is because we're in the town, we can use the entire town, and it's about the natural environment of the park and Westwood, but equally about the buildings. And going back to thinking of how multicultural we are, we can walk down the road and we can see an array of different shops and different people that we can talk about. So it's about kind of the urban outdoor environment as well. We can go up to the deck outside the art room and we can look over the whole of Ipswich, and you can see countryside. You can also see Ipswich Town Football Club. You can see churches. You can see even a bit of the hospital. It's incredible. So actually, it's the outside world and everything in it.
Excellent. Thank you very much. And I'm going to keep you here, if I may, Annabelle. So what do you expect children to be able to do when they start in reception? Do you expect them to be able to read and write?
Oh my gosh, absolutely not. No. In fact, I think that is one of the biggest misconceptions, is that they should be reading and writing when they join us. Please don't have them reading and writing before they join us, because that's our job. We have trained for years and years and have so much experience in teaching the children to read and write, and they will do it when they're ready. So if we're teaching them from the word go, they've got everything, we're making sure that they've got everything that we need them to have to be able to read and write beautifully. Equally, if they can, that's fantastic as well, and we will work with that. But please don't worry. The biggest thing is that the children leave their grown-ups each day and come in and have a lovely day. They have a smile on their face all day long and they leave with a smile on their face. The reading and the writing and all of the academic stuff, that comes as almost like a byproduct really of the happiness and the play and the environment that they're in. So no, remove any pressure. Don't panic. If your child is not interested in holding a pencil, it's because they're just not ready, but they will be, and then they will make heaps of progress. So no pressure. We'll do it.
Thank you very much. Thank you. This is probably one for Amanda. What's the relationship between children in the upper prep moving through to the senior school? Does it help them to get a place at the senior school?
Absolutely. As I said earlier on, that the best preparation for the next part of any part of Ipswich school is the one that goes before it. So we have a seamless transition. And when I say seamless, I really do mean seamless transition between the prep and the senior school. It's really important that the children have a change. So some of them that have been with us a long time need to feel comfortable and that they can have that transition without a worry. But also they do need to be a little bit nervous about it. They need to feel that they are actually moving on to senior school. So we try and get that balance absolutely right. But the children that we have in the prep can have an early offer into the senior school. So at the end of year 5, if we've had the children long enough, so that usually means from the beginning of year 5 at the very least, that we make recommendations to the headmaster to say that we know that these children are making the progress that we would expect them to make in order to be able to make a happy and seamless transition into the senior school. Because we don't want the senior school to be the wrong place for the children, because if it is too academic, if the pace of learning is too fast for them and it's not right, every independent school is independent for a reason, and we all have our ways of working. And for some children, Ipswich School is not the right place for them, that pace of learning just is not quite right. So at the end of year 5, if we've had the children long enough, that educational trajectory is all on track, and that we will make those recommendations to the headmaster and parents will receive an early offer. If we haven't had the children very long, or we have a few little worries about the children going on to the senior school, conversations will have happened with parents a long time before those offers are made. And it's usual that if the children don't get a full offer, an unconditional offer at the end of year 5, that they may have a conditional offer, which means that we want them to make that progress into year 6. The children all take the entrance test in late January, early February of year 6, and that's for benchmarking and for scholarship purposes as well. So there aren't any children that won't take that test. So even if they've got an offer already, we prepare the children for that entrance test. We don't know what it contains, and that's absolutely right. But what's really important is that I'm part of that meeting when decisions are made about the children and their move into year 7. So the senior school meeting. So that means that if a child in the prep school has had a really bad day, and it does happen sometimes, that I can say that's not what I would expect from that child. And most importantly, that we can then pass over those concerns about maybe exam technique, that the seniors ready to receive those children in year 7, thinking actually we've got to help them with the way that they work in exams. So yes, it is a big advantage to being in the prep school, because we know the senior school so well. We are all one school, but we are 2 elements of the same school, and the preparation that the children get means that they will have the very best start in year 7. Certainly not saying that anybody coming into year 7 is not going to do a great job too, but our children tend to hit the ground running and are able to just carry on with their learning, rather than maybe sometimes having a little bit of a hiatus.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. Well, I think that brings us to the end of our session. Some really lovely questions. Thank you to everyone for joining us, and lots of viewers I can see on YouTube and Facebook. So we will say goodbye. Amanda, do you want to say one last word of goodbye to everyone?
Well, thank you ever so much for joining us today. As I said in my introduction, we absolutely love our school, and hopefully that's come across in the way that we've spoken today. And we love our school because of the children. The children are absolutely at the heart of Ipswich Prep School. And so come and see us, come and see what we like. You've seen us today. You might have seen a little bit of the videos and a little bit of what the children are like, but it's nothing compared to actually coming and seeing what the atmosphere is like and how lovely our children are. So please come and see us.